Hi, everybody. My name is Todd. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we're talking about purpose with a couple of our New City students, Micah and Ellie. Thanks for joining us for the conversation. Why don't we start our conversation? And Ellie, why don't you share a little bit about kind of your faith journey and when you became a Christian, what life has looked like?
Well, I was homeschooled from birth to 7th grade, so I was taught by my mother, so I was able to, see a Christian life like firsthand without like being around teachers and other students all day. So I think that really influenced me to come to Christ very early. So I seriously remember praying in my living room during a school day to ask Christ to be in my heart and be my Lord and Savior, and then I soon got baptized after that.
Okay,
so I think
that's awesome. Do you remember what preceded that prayer? Like what was happening that day? What
probably a
conversations?
Bible class, I think.
Okay, got it. Do you remember the Bible lesson?
Not specifically. No.
But it ended up with your salvation in that moment. That's awesome. How about you, Micah? What's kind of your background, your faith story?
Yeah, the start was kind of similar to Ellie's, where it's just like growing up in church for a while. I feel like the first, because I got baptized, I think in 3rd grade maybe, and at that time I felt really like strongly towards getting baptized then, but I feel like that's like faded a little bit. And then like the call was definitely stronger like after like 8th grade, and during that summer I was like, I'm like not like I had realized that I need to like make a change with my life and kind of like reinvest myself back into the church.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
talk
when
a
I
little
started.
bit more about that, because that's kind of like the evolution of our faith, right? Is, 3rd grade, 8 years old, maybe, and then you're talking middle school, which is a significant change in between those two time frames. But how would you say from those two moments to now, how has your faith grown throughout the years?
It's grown a lot. It's become more of like I feel like when I was younger, it was kind of just like my parents take us to church. So I like go to church and like I believe in God, but it's become more of like a personal journey to myself and actually doing things on my own and independent of my family to deepen my faith.
Yeah, that's really awesome. What would you say from that? We were 7 years old praying that prayer in your family room to now. How has your faith grown and evolved?
I think a lot with like youth groups and things like that. Obviously, I didn't go to youth group when I was 7. So I think like just being in a community of Christians, I think I've definitely grown a lot more in the past like 3 years of being in high school for sure.
Yeah. So to kind of like summarize what you all shared, I mean, shout out to your parents for driving you to church, right? It feels sometimes, it probably feels monotonous or like, do we have to go to church again? I kind of felt like that growing up in my own way, but I'm so grateful that my parents made that a priority. And same thing with your Bible classes that you were doing, it's like, to have kind of the foundation of your faith being built at home is really valuable. And now you all are making personal decisions on your own, right? Your family's still involved in your life, but you are kind of grasping what it means to have a personal faith in Jesus. So to kind of focus in on that personal side, what does it mean to live on purpose for Jesus as you go through high school? Ellie, what would you say?
I think for me, following Jesus like with a purpose, I think I leave my old customs and like my old patterns at the doorway to pursue a two-sided relationship, because I think that honestly in life no healthy relationship is a monologue, and it should be a dialogue, like a two-sided conversation. Like in Luke 9:23 it says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily and follow me. So I try to leave my past behind and not think about like any other mistakes or things like that, and to deny the worldly desires that obviously anyone who lives in the world feels, to like follow him daily, to take up my cross daily and pursue a two-sided relationship.
Yeah, I love that you emphasized relationship, because that's what it is at the end of the day. You may have heard, Pastor Heath or Pastor Chris share that, when it comes to Christianity, Christianity is not about religion. It's about a relationship that we have with Jesus. Even though it's kind of lumped in together with all the other world's religions, ultimately it's about a relationship with our Creator, the one who made us and saved us. Micah, what would you say about what does it mean to live on purpose?
So kind of similar to what Ellie was saying, how it's like I feel like in the question it's saying daily, and that's like a huge part of it, is that it is about like actively following God. And it's also a lot, I feel like, of like pouring God's love out onto other people and just trying to like reflect his light onto other people and like serving him in that way.
Okay. Yeah. I love that idea of reflecting his light, right? It's done something in you and you're trying to pour that out or share that outward with others. Well, you both are in high school, and New City is big fans of students. But obviously there is an age gap here. I won't reveal my age, but I'm pretty close to y'all. But you know, oftentimes it can be hard for us to either remember or even relate to what life is like and what it looks like to live out your faith where you are. And so when it comes to being a Christian in high school and living on purpose for Jesus, how do you all manage some of the conflict that comes about when your faith values collide with other people's worldviews or even peer pressure that just kind of is ubiquitous throughout high school? How would you kind of face those?
I think at Whisper Mountain, for sure, we learned a lot about like living beyond the patterns of the world. So I think I try to like really remember that I live for a different purpose than the people here. And like, I pray a lot about bringing others to Christ through my actions and not just my words, because as a not super like outgoing person, I try to have my actions be very, speak very highly of my character and who I pursue in life. And I try to tell myself that as a Christian, I hope that I would rather be hated by the world and make it to heaven than be praised by the world and not make it to heaven.
Yeah.
Because I think that our purpose is ultimately to bring others to Christ. And I think that that's one way that I can live for my purpose.
Yeah. So you're aware that the conflict does exist.
Yes.
And it may show up tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? But you're conscious of that. I think that's really valuable. How would you answer that question?
I kind of had a completely different answer from Ellie. A lot of what I was thinking about is kind of what I was doing like after middle school, is just kind of realizing that obviously not everyone who's going to surround you is going to be Christian, but it's also getting to a point where you're like, okay, like these people are making choices that I don't want to align with. So I have to like distance myself from that, because kind of what Ellie was talking about, like we're called to be set apart. Like we shouldn't fit in with the people who are just practicing things that belong to this world.
Yeah, one thing that I've heard is there's a different way to approach every sort of social situation. It can be like Christ verse culture, where you're kind of opposed to everything. Christ above culture, where you're superior to everything, like, oh, I'm better than everybody. Christ below culture, where now you're subservient to it and you let them call the shots and kind of dictate what you do with your life. And then there's Christ transforming culture. And so I think especially what you shared about reflecting his light, it's not running away from some of these conflicts that you face, but being aware that, you know, we're in the world, but not of the world, with a different option for the world kind of thing. But we do have to make some decisions as well of what we're going to be involved in. And so I think y'all shared that really well in a space that is definitely unique to where we are currently. So thank you for choosing Jesus in the midst of your everyday life. And right, there's no perfect people here. There's only one perfect person, but making that decision is a real conscious one to prioritize a relationship. So when it comes to purpose, how have you understood what it means to discern finding your purpose? You want to start, Micah?
Okay. I know in terms of like, since we are in high school and we're kind of getting to that point in life where people expect us to have like the rest of our life figured out. And I know that's kind of like a struggle for me when I think about it, is like knowing like career-wise what I want to do. But I feel like also like in the Bible, one of the things we're called to do is, and I remind myself of this when I'm like going to do like homework and I really don't feel like it, is Colossians 3:23, which is basically talking about working willingly and joyfully for the world because you're serving God, not these earthly people. Well, you're serving them, but you're working for God.
Yeah, for a greater purpose, right?
Yeah. And also just in that, it's like, I definitely feel like drawn towards like helping and serving people, even if I don't know the specifics of that yet. I can also just trust God and that He'll just guide me where I go as long as I'm following along with His plan.
Can you speak to what has motivated you? Because I've seen you do that. It's like you have a servant's heart, and it seems natural, but where did it start? Where did it come from?
Oh, it's a really good question. I feel like I talked about this I was thinking about this when looking at some of the other questions that we have, is a lot of it is just like, if someone like offers you an opportunity, such as you asking us to be on this podcast, it's like, take a lot of opportunities as you can and when it's presented to you.
Yep.
And when it's kind of in between that, it's just like more so like putting your head down and like working on what else you have at hand right then. But then when you are offered things, kind of taking those opportunities and like working on yourself too to make you a better servant of other people.
I love that. That's great. How about you, Ellie? When it comes to discerning God's purpose, how do you understand that?
I think that a lot of things God doesn't tell us for a reason. And I think there were some songs that we sang today. It was the one that Alan sings a lot. And I think that one, like, everything I need, I know my Father has it. And I think that really speaks to how, like, God's purpose will be revealed to you at the time that it is to be revealed to you. And I think that a lot of following God and having faith is honestly trusting in something that you can't see and believing in something you can't see. So I think that God's purpose is shown to me when I need it to be shown to me. And I think a lot of it just goes by trust and prayer. And if you pray, like, he will answer what he is willing to answer.
And interesting how he like meets us in those moments. I love, the open opportunity. That kind of takes me back to Whisper Mountain as well. And that like we do that thing with like, grab an open opportunity or however it goes, Sorry for everybody listening. That's an inside joke. But, seizing the open opportunity instead of going like, God, what else is out there? Am I in your will? Am I part of your plan? Am I doing your purpose? And it's like, just what's right in front of you. It's like school is an opportunity. And, however, disinterested we may feel in that sort of description, but talk about school a little bit more. How do you understand your purpose in school? You talked about math, which or yours like doing homework, right? Doing what's right in front of you and doing it for a greater purpose. I did not see the world that way. I was not a big fan of school, but it took me a long time to realize that everything right before me is an opportunity that God has given me. So how are you working through that when it comes to living on purpose in high school?
I think, honestly, I see school as like a blessing because obviously I was homeschooled for a while. So I think I see like going to school with friends as a blessing and a privilege. So I think that like being around not only just my friends, but everyone else obviously at the school, I think that I can see that as like an opportunity, and God puts me in that place. God put me there every day as his workmanship. And I'm there to, ultimately teach others about him. So I think that I just see everything as an opportunity, or at least I try to see everything as an opportunity.
Yeah, that's good. How about you?
Kind of similar to what Ellie was talking about. There's always like daily chances to show people love and kindness, especially like when we are in school and some people might be struggling with what's going on in the class and like helping them out, or some people might not have a bunch of friends and just talking to them. Just like simple like acts of kindness basically is just like part of why we're there. I know when Sarah from Whisper Mountain, she was reaching out to me and she was talking about how she was going back to college, and she was like talking about how it's obviously like a scary thing to look forward to, and she was saying, but it's like a new missions field. And I was like, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, that's a really good mindset to have, is that God's putting you into that place to do his work.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that, public schools, and I'm sure private schools as well, are some of the unreached people groups, in the United States, right? There's plenty of people who don't know the good news of Jesus, that you're sitting next to them. And one thought that I've kind of grown to understand a little bit more is that where we are in life is our platform for sharing Jesus with others. So you both are athletes, correct?
Yeah.
You both play soccer?
Yes.
Right? So that is not just a hobby, but it is a platform for you to extend kindness to somebody. it's essentially bringing heaven to earth. And if you get the opportunity to share Jesus with somebody, then you're seizing, on that opportunity that you have. So I like that a lot of it is kind of revolving around, it's like, let's expand our opportunity, right? It's not just, I have to go to school because I have to go to school, right? That's what we're required to do, but it's an opportunity that God has given us to bring heaven to earth, to share Jesus with others. Well, let's talk about Christian community a little bit. You all involved in kind of a couple different Christian groups, but how has Christian community, whether it's the church or I know you're involved in Youth Commission International as well, but how has being involved in Christian community expanded your understanding of living on purpose?
I would say it's a really good motivator to see how other people are like living out their purpose. I was having this conversation with Alicia, shout out to her, over the summer, and she was talking about how she had like gotten these Bibles and was giving them out to people at her school because she had just realized that some people didn't have them and they wanted them, and so she was able to like give access to them, which is a really, really cool thing to do. And also a lot of seeing how people have a lot of like biblical knowledge and they're studying their Bible, and you can really tell that they're just continually deepening their faith. Like that's a good way to see like where you can improve in your life, and also how you can like work together with other people for their strengths to learn more about God and the Bible.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that another Whisper Mountain thing that people won't understand, but the washing of the feet where people will keep you accountable. So I think that that's a great thing with the community. I think like, because you can't make as many mistakes if your community is a Christian community and they're holding you to a higher standard and they're trying to keep you from falling to that worldly standard and the worldly things that you might feel inclined to do.
Yeah. This episode's been brought to you by Whisper Mountain Summer Camp, a great camp for you to be a part of. Check it out at your local church. There you go. There's our commercial break.
Okay.
All right. In what ways do you feel God has used you to impact others? You shared about Alicia, which is a great example, but what experiences have you had, whether it's, recently or go back to middle school. What have been some of those experiences where you feel like God used you to impact the life of somebody else?
Okay. I don't have a specific example of like one person, but I know when I was helping out at Ashley Place Apartments, Place of Peace. I know Travis loves calling it POP, Pop. I don't know what's going on with that. And also with Camp Kid Jam and everything, it's just like, because it would be something repeated like over multiple different days, and just like seeing that some kids, and also at the middle school weekend last weekend, seeing that like some kids like liked me basically and like wanted to talk to me. I was like, oh, like I'm actually doing something. Like I'm not just some like random person who stands around at these places, but I'm like actually someone who's there for younger kids.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think honestly, going back to what I was saying before, like, I think I am a curious person. I think I'm also, like, someone who, like, notices things. So I think, like, acting on that, I can really use my actions to bring others to Christ. And I think that my purpose could honestly be, like, how I act and, like, people being curious when they see, like, me acting to a higher standard. And I really love the verse. I think it's Esther 4:14. Perhaps you're created for such a time as this. And I really think that, like, with 7 billion people on earth, like everyone's not called to be like a preacher or everyone's not called to be a pastor or an evangelist or something like, crazy like that. But I think that like if I impact one person, like in my entire life, honestly, like that could be God's purpose for me. And like such a time as this, like this moment right now could be why I'm here. That's and really good. If I shrink off in the corner and like if I don't say something that God is telling me to say, then like that's not his calling. And I really just think that like my purpose could definitely be like having my actions, bring others to Christ.
Yeah. I once heard somebody say that the best way for someone to know Jesus is to know someone who knows Jesus. Yeah. Right? I think that's just a good summary. It's kind of what you were talking about is like these middle schoolers saying like, hey, Micah, what's going on? It's like, well, I could be the way that they meet Jesus. Same thing, whether it's in your classroom or on your sports team or just in your neighborhood. So what is this doing for you as you kind of process through, pray, explore, consider what your purpose might be, or what you kind of give your life to in the future?
It's something that's like really fulfilling, I feel like, when just like serving, helping out, loving other people. Like, it's never something that I'm like, oh, I have to go do this. Like, it's something that I do enjoy a lot, and it's very rewarding. Like, I was thinking how it's like, it's kind of difficult to be lost when I feel like, because I was going back to when I was talking about the opportunities that like God will put in front of you. It's like when you're taking those opportunities and kind of trying to follow along on his path, you can't really feel lost towards it because there's always something that you can work towards in front of you.
Okay, that's great. How about you?
Yeah, going off of what you said, I served with my school, like, I think 2 weeks ago, and my mom keeps talking about it, saying, like, that she always thinks, like, if you're, like, down in the dumps or, like, getting too cocky or you're, like, you know, just too, like, you know, proud of yourself, then, like, go serve, because that genuinely, like, it shows you just how, like, fulfilling that kind of an action can be. And I think that another thing, like, I can be motivated by Jesus, and, like, my motivation can come from Jesus, because genuinely, like, there's a reason why I woke up this morning, and that could be to influence someone. So, like, that could be my purpose and my motivation.
Yeah. This question's off script, but you just made me think of it. So, you know,
Okay.
just, you know, top of your head, whatever comes to your mind. We don't always feel like that, right? We don't always wake up going like, okay, I'm ready to get out there and live for Jesus and serve with purpose. So what do you do on days when you don't feel like it, right? When you're like, okay, I really don't want to either come to church and serve, or I don't want to go to Place of Peace, or I don't want to be an influence to my friends. What keeps you grounded, or what keeps you anchored to come back to that when you're not feeling it?
I can answer
give you any
first.
time. Yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say kind of two things. So one of them was what Ellie was talking about, I think, is that it is just like a privilege to be where you are, and a privilege to like wake up every day, because some people obviously want that and they don't always get it.
Yeah.
And just like being at school where you are, like, that's something that you shouldn't take for granted. And also going back to what Ellie was talking about with like the pick up your cross daily, that's like another reminder, is that like Jesus did all of this for you. And it's like, you can't just, like, he's given you this gift, and it's just kind of like taking it for granted, not really appreciating it if you're not willing to live for him also, because he made that sacrifice for your life to be good.
Yeah, well said. Would you add anything to that?
Sure. I also think kind of two things. I think one could be like prayer. Like, I think honestly praying can change your whole mindset. And another thing, going back to the community, like, I think if you are like down in the dumps in the morning, and then like you get to school and your like school community is very like Christ-centered, then that could definitely like boost your mood. So I think that's a great like pro of having a good community, is like your community can genuinely like flip your whole day around and change your mindset for that entire day completely.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's why church exists every 7 days, because you like get out of the rhythm, and you like you get back to church, you're like, okay, at this once a week, I'm reminded of who is king, what my purpose is in life, because we go too far. I know if I get too far away from being with the community, then I kind of lose sight of that pretty easily. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. So now's your chance to give advice to everybody who's listening out there. So what advice do you have for those listening about following Jesus and living on purpose? Who wants to go first? Paper, rock, scissors to take this last one here?
I could go first.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, a lot. I was talking about taking opportunities. That's a big part of it. And then like I kind of answered this earlier. I feel like, but when you're in between things, or you feel like there's not something set in front of you, a lot of times I feel like that's space for you to be able to grow in your faith and kind of like learn how you can better serve other people in the meantime. And also just gaining biblical knowledge so you can share that with other people. And then, yeah, just in general, if you're feeling drawn towards something that furthers the kingdom, pray for guidance, seek out other people's leadership, read the Bible.
Hey, there you go. Nice.
Yeah.
What would you say, Ellie?
I think honestly, if you feel like at all that you don't have a purpose, or that like you're struggling to find your purpose, devote your life fully to Jesus. Honestly, like being a lukewarm Christian it's not as fulfilling, to be completely honest with you. It's not as fulfilling as being fully devoted to Jesus. And I don't think there's any other feeling on earth than like fully devoting yourself to Jesus. And I think that honestly, that like holds you to a higher standard. It should change your entire way of life. And so genuinely, I think that would be your main purpose in life. And that's honestly anyone's purpose in life if they choose to accept it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well said. This is great. You are a really valuable part of New City, and our church is really proud of you. So thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.